Let's talk about the crew. Look, can you talk about the crew?
Yeah, I can.
All right, let's talk about the crew because you've just played it. It's well, can you?
No, I can.
Okay, good. You've just played it this very morn.
I did play it this very morn.
This very morn.
Yes.
This very morn. And 'twas...
Merrily, the...
'Twas
Keep going, Luke.
Twas a transcendent
Just keep saying
experience.
twas. Oh, don't say transcendent.
No, I said transcendent.
It was a very twazzy.
You know how much I hate transcendent.
In fact, twas sublime.
Oh, you kill me. You kill me, you bastard.
No, in fairness, it's actually really, really good.
Awesome.
And that probably will come as very little surprise to people like, oh, it's a racing game, and it's
Luke likes racing games.
But no, I really, really enjoyed it.
Gemma Jameson.
Yeah. This is the first time I've played. This is the first time I've had hands-on with the crew, which has been under development for quite some time, and people have had hands-on with it in the past overseas. But I haven't been to. I wasn't at E3 last year, for instance. Pardon me, and I didn't get a chance to play it when it was down here last year. And it's enormous. Isn't that its major selling point? Large. Well, to be fair to it, yes and no. Like, its size is obviously a factor, and it's going to be something that gets a lot of press. Mm-hmm. One of the things they did initially before we got into playing the game itself was sort of plonk a few game worlds on top of the map itself, like the crew map, and so you have you have the entire continental US on screen, for instance, and you have I think it's about 12 or so cities, 12 or so major cities that they've put into the game, and then they plop sort of really sort of iconic and memorable game worlds that you probably are very familiar with on top of their map. So you sort of plonk down, okay, GTA 5, that's the crew, that's California in the crew. And you go, okay, GTA 5 is pretty big, okay. And then they plonk down Skyrim somewhere. I think it's sort of the East Coast. Somewhere else on the West Coast. You're like, Skyrim's pretty big.
Yep.
And then they plonk down like Far Cry, and that sort of takes up the whole East Coast of the US, like New York and sort of beyond that. And then they plonk down Red Dead Redemption. That's kind of like the Midwest. And then they plonk down
So it's big.
Yeah, and it's like, wow.
There's a lot of plonking.
Wow.
It's a big plonking game.
This is a really, really, really
what
big
a plonker.
map.
So would you say it's the, I mean, by your description, it's the biggest on console, it's the biggest game world yet?
I'm not, I don't think that, I don't think they're claiming that.
Yet? I just think GTA 5...
Yeah, if you add
Skyrim,
them all together, and it's still only just
Red Dead, Far Cry 3.
Maybe they're just worried by the time it comes out, it won't be the biggest anymore.
Nothing could outplonk this game.
No. I think it may have been outplonked. Like Just Cause 2, for instance, was enormous.
Yeah, it was big.
A lot of that was procedurally generated.
Yeah, same tree over and over again.
Hey, I like Just Cause 2.
I do too.
Yeah.
I did too.
Everyone likes Just Cause 2.
Yeah.
But
not for its map though.
You're right.
Having scale is
size
good,
is one thing,
yeah.
But you need. I guess you need that when you're like, when you're zip lining jumbo jets to attach cars to them.
Exactly.
But the crew, like, it does that. It's it's big, but it's also really interesting. Like when you,
how big is it? No, sorry.
Just plonk a whole bunch of down.
Like,
and that's how big
they had there, and it's like, well, because Ivory Tower, who are making the game, who are primarily making the game with cooperation with
they called their
Reflections
studio Ivory Tower?
Ivory Tower, yeah.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
And I think Ubisoft Montpellier and that sort of stuff. Because a lot of these guys are ex-Eden games. They used to make Test Drive.
Well, they've got some pedigree.
Which was quite an enormous game on its own. You know what I mean? And to be fair,
didn't
Test
plonk
Drive...
that down at any stage?
No, they didn't, actually. I was surprised they didn't.
How weird.
You would have thought that would have been the first plonk.
No, you know why? Because Oahu, in the scheme of like the continental US, like Oahu's quite small. Really.
That's true. It is. You're right.
So,
but think about it. Like,
if you plonked it into Red Dead Redemption, how big would that be?
Oahu into Red Dead Redemption?
Yeah.
I honestly don't know.
Like
exactly.
Sorry.
So they should have done that to give you some kind of
give me some
Are
perspective.
we plonking?
I can't believe they didn't show me that.
Are we plonking Test Drive Oahu down, or actual real life Oahu down in the middle of Red Dead?
That's a good question.
Let's be fair. Test drive Oahu and real life Oahu were actually the same thing.
Look out.
Hey.
There you go.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So yeah, just FYI, the crew isn't a 1-to-1 representation of the continental US.
But it is really
large.
freaking
But it's
big.
plonking
In the
huge.
fastest car in the game, it will take you 90 minutes to drive from New York to LA.
Can I trip skip?
Yes. Yeah. See, that's
Thank
the great
goodness.
thing about the game. Like, it's all very,
How was a time saver?
it's all very intelligently designed. Like, if you choose an event,
Imagine just driving for 90 minutes.
I would do
Being
it.
like,
to get
it's worth it. It's really pretty.
just to get.
You guys can all shut up.
No, it doesn't. What about the racing?
Sorry,
Let's talk about the racing.
that's all he did.
I mean,
Sorry,
part
so
of
now
the-
he's upset.
Part of the fantasy of the fact, like, that's when I spoke to, one of the
cheaper than an
devs down.
airfare
One of the
over
devs
there,
are
right?
down here for,
Yeah.
for the crew, and I said, well, because they're a French studio and Ubisoft is a French publisher, and like all I do is, so I watch Top Gear all the time, and it's like you watch them driving all over Europe, and you're like, wow, I'd love to drive across Europe.
Yeah.
And these guys have gone like, let's make a game all about North America. And you think to yourself, why didn't you make it about Europe? But America is kind of that. It's kind of that fantasy. It's like coast to coast, that Cannonball Run kind of fantasy. You're like,
Very iconic.
I can get that. So what you get when you drive across the US is like a dozen different types of topography. You get like you're driving through the desert when you're in Vegas, and you're driving like
Mountains.
Colorado. You're like snowy mountains, and so on and
That's
so
true.
forth.
All of Europe's just very European.
It's very European.
You get
yeah.
a lot of different things in
yeah.
the States.
In the States, it's very American.
It's very American.
Yeah. Not much desert in Europe, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you got snow or green.
Snow or green,
Like, that's Europe.
and
Well,
a
you go-
lot of Germans
Oh, yeah.
Snow or
right
green.
in the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, around the German parts. Yeah.
The germinal area.
You can bypass that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, I do like Germinal.
Oh, I do like some German.
But one of obviously a racing game lives and I'll wrap it up because we've been speaking for ages for some reason.
We've only scratched the surface.
A racing game lives or dies on the handling.
Hackneyed quip.
And I was really, I really kind of.
Well, that's it. I mean,
really
this is
dug
where
it.
well, I've got to take your word for it, but I know that you have played a lot of racing games, and you can separate the arcadey handling from the authentic shit.
Yeah, and obviously
Where
the
does it
crew
fit in the sort of?
the crew errs towards more arcade.
When you were growing up, did you use that as a pickup line? So I can separate the more arcadey handling.
You would have
from
tried it
the
at least once,
authentic
sure.
shit.
Yeah, it didn't get me a lot of tail.
And
I must
then you
admit.
follow that. Let's plonk, baby.
That's to say,
Plonk.
can I just plonk it right in here?
Can I just plonk my map on your map?
Right on your map of Tassie. But the handling is quite.
Yeah, well, see what it is. It's like when I was. It's kind of like if you played a lot of racing games, or if you played a few racing games, you'll kind of start playing the crew and you'll be like, oh yeah, I get this. It's not a difficult game to kind of get behind,
Right.
but it's not like what I was kind of anticipating is like, I feel like maybe the Reflections influence, who are building the PS4 version of this game, and they've built like quite a bit of Texas, for instance, apparently.
They're only working on the PS4 version?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's like Ubisoft Montpellier and Ubisoft Reflections are taking care of certain areas of the crew, but it's mostly Ivory Tower, who are, like I said,
Eden.
led by ex-Eden guys, but staffed by a lot of extra
Right.
guys who have come from various backgrounds. It's not quite like Driver San Francisco, where it's really you balance a car on that power slide.
I feel like we all need to do a shot or something.
I know. I just did you see my face.
Yeah, yeah.
You said there was Driver San Francisco. I
Yeah.
was like, oh.
It's been so long.
It's a little sort of stickier than
Right.
Driver San Francisco, but it's still very kind of.
I can't imagine anything stickier than your copy of Driver San Francisco.
Oh,
ding, 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 ding.
I will pay that. But it's kind of
Awesome.
the sense of weight is actually really, really, really good, which is obviously really, really crucial to us. Kind of sort of an arcadey kind of racer. But it's like I said, when I say arcade kind of racer, it's nowhere near as superficial as something like Ridge Race or something like that.
Right.
You know, it's something that requires a bit of attention. It's something that requires a bit of finesse, but it's not something that requires a degree in astrophysics. You know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Thank God.
Lucky, because I don't have one of those.
I'll cancel my enrollment.
I don't either.
Oh my God, you don't either. I've been too embarrassed to tell you.
I went to
Shut
O-Week, but okay. Let's move quickly.
Anyway, I really,
yes.
I genuinely enjoyed it, which is probably not a surprise.
No, that's good.
Because I genuinely loved Test Drive Unlimited, and like Test Drive Unlimited doesn't get enough credit, I feel, as a game that was probably about 7 years ahead of its time. Like, because everyone's talking about the crew, and like I will add, even the Ivory Tower guys are like, you know, this is the crew, and it's like, you know, this is proper MMO RPG kind of stuff. And I guess, to be fair to them, it's like, yes, they have added an RPG element to the crew where, you know, you upgrade your cars, you sort of level up your cars. It's not really something you did in Test Drive. But to be fair to Test Drive really was the first MMO kind of racing game where you had this giant world, you were racing around in an online environment against sort of strangers in this persistent sort of large world. Like, it really was a game that was quite ahead of its time. So I feel like the crew is definitely the evolution of something like Test Drive.
Cool.